Hello. Mace Windu was an extremely talented and formidable duelist, having defeated Sidious in Revenge of the Sith. What if Darth Sidious killed Mace Windu? Would the other three council members be able to hold their own, or would Sidious emerge victorious? What would Anakin find when he eventually arrived in Palpatine's office? Special thanks to Artsabers for sponsoring our 75,000 subscriber lightsaber giveaway. All the details in the pinned comment down below. Only 700 more left until this lightsaber will be given away.
Our story begins inside the Republic Executive Building. 4 Jedi Masters approached the Sith Lord. They were told by Anakin Skywalker that he was the Sith Lord, but at the moment they weren't in 100% agreement with the idea. However, this didn't stop them from entering the office of the Chancellor with a show of force. The moment they rolled into the room, the doors opened and their lightsabers ignited. Palpatine scowled at them, knowing that they were obviously threatening him. As a Senate, he couldn't just accept this. The Sith Lord eyed the 4 of his opponents, trying to figure out which one would be the most difficult challenge. Sidious picked his target for the attack, before moving on to the others. Thinning the crowd would be the easiest step forward. While Palpatine was a formidable duelist, he'd prefer to take out the largest challenge amongst the crowd. He didn't believe the Jedi were truly a challenge, but they were, Jedi Masters after all, and he wasn't stupid enough to act like they weren't. Sidious whipped his lightsaber from his sleeve and darted across the room. A Sith howl echoed out. All the Jedi were taken aback. The glow of the crimson blade and his quick actions after the words "It's treason then" shocked all of them. Palpatine lunged forward to the middle of the line, throwing his blade through Windu's chest. Palpatine was unprepared for the effectiveness of this maneuver, as his momentum threw him over Windu's body and he was pushed into the hallway between the 2 different sections of the office. Sidious leapt to his feet and turned around. The Master of the Order was the highest ranking member on the council present here. The other Jedi were now fully alert to their threat, and the leader of their group was gone. Master Fisto took on the point. They had to move quickly. It was obvious at this point how threatening their opponent was. Saesee Tiin and Agan Kolar followed Fisto into the room. Sidious jabbed forward at the 3 Jedi and they all reacted, their blades moving in unison. Fisto took the brunt of the first hit, using Form 1 to guide his movements. This style worked against General Grievous during the earlier part of the war, and it would work here, too. Fisto pushed forward, and his companions spread out around the thick hallway before it thinned down into a 1-person entrance. Fisto was shoved backwards and the other Jedi Masters got into their movements. Had Sidious gone from left to right, he would have blinded them with his speed, but they all had a moment to now gather up their senses and confront the Sith Lord. Fisto regained his footing and watched Agan Kolar and Sidious thrust their blades back and forth. Master Kolar shoved Sidious back and Saesee Tiin followed up, leaping through the air, slamming his blade down on Sidious's blade. Fisto ran forward, catching up with them. This group of Jedi, now with the exception of Windu, had been fighting with each other and accompanying each other for numerous adventures throughout the war. They all worked in unison with each other, and right here was a perfect show of their time together. Their blades passed in front of each other. Sidious realized that these masters weren't sorry excuses of Force users, but rather talented users of their respective forms. Master Fisto gave him the hardest time out of the bunch. Using Form 1 was such an uncharacteristic thing for a talented Force user to use. Form 1 was really basic, but on top of its rather basic movements and strikes were random swings that didn't follow any formula. At this moment, Sidious realized how and why the Jedi Master almost beat General Grievous, where others couldn't. Both Saesee Tiin and Agan Kolar were talented Jedi Masters, but with Fisto leading the charge, they were able to excel. Their lightsaber forms varied in more aggressive styles, and they used this to their advantage. Had Sidious used his advantage against them, he likely wouldn't have been able to thin their numbers. In his mind, he believed this duel was still in his favor. He killed the Master of the Order. That had to be the very least break their will, and their confidence, and yet they didn't yield. They were all Jedi Masters, and their entire life's work was mounting up to this moment. They may have not known it until now, but they accepted that they needed to be the ones to defeat the Sith Lord. Kenobi did his job on Utapau, Skywalker did his job here on Coruscant. It was their turn to finish it off, making sure that they got rid of the Sith. Sidious followed a similar style to what Master Yoda used, meaning that he was leaping off of furniture in the room, blasting his lightsaber away at them. However, each of these masters having sparred with Yoda in their time several times, they were very confident against their opponent. Sidious was genuinely taken aback by their collective skill. Maybe he should have targeted Tiin and Kolar instead of Windu. In hindsight, that looked like that would have been a smarter move. However, it was such more a testament to his own arrogance, believing the Jedi weren't even worthy the time of a duel just to see how effective they really could be. Sidious caught wind of an advantage when he sliced Fisto's tentacles. It ripped the right side off and the Jedi Master fell backwards. With a grin crossing his jawline, Palpatine's blade tried to make its mark. Saesee Tiin and Agan Kolar both protected themselves. If they took time away from their focus on their defense, then they would surely falter too. They believed that Fisto would be back on his feet and assisting them, but for now they had to stay focused on themselves. Palpatine was hoping that these Jedi would take their focus off of themselves and worry about their comrade, but they didn't buckle. This was the effect of having served with each other for so many years. They were all High Council members anyways, so they were the best of the best inside the Jedi Order. This meant that they trusted their fellow masters here. If one of them fell, then they couldn't buckle, because it would surrender the victory of the war. Windu would have done the same had he been placed in this predicament. All the masters didn't let their emotions get the best of them, and they couldn't. Saesee Tiin and Agan Kolar thrusted their blades forward, matching pace and speed with the Sith Lord. Fisto got to his feet, shaking off the jolt of pain to his body. Before he rejoined the conflict, he felt a disturbance in the Force. From the Skywalker. This genuinely upset Fisto. He trusted Anakin, but why couldn't he just listen for once, just one time? He had every opportunity to allow the Jedi Master to finish this off. Why couldn't he just stay put for more than an hour? Fisto felt a rage bellow in his chest before he put it away, keeping an eye on the door. Was this Anakin trying to help, or be a hero, or was he coming here to try and help out the former Chancellor? Fisto noticed that no one else picked up on it, or at least they didn't react to Anakin's presence, so he could hang back. If Anakin saw Sidious with his lightsabers flashing away, then hopefully he wouldn't screw up again. Fisto hovered around, keeping his eye on his peers. He couldn't hang back anymore. Kolar was lifted from his feet and thrown into the wall. Fisto jumped in at the right time to keep his friend safe, without putting himself in a disadvantageous position. The moment Fisto's blade hit Sidious's, the sound of boots speeding into the door could be heard. It was him. Agan turned over, not just feeling the presence but hearing the sound. He looked at Skywalker and leapt to his feet, recovering the jolt that he took from the hit of Palpatine. Anakin looked at the room. Sidious was holding his blade, clashing with Saesee Tiin, and the Jedi Master was smacked and slid across Palpatine's desk. Fisto stood with his blade outwards facing Palpatine, but keeping his distance. Anakin's blade shot out, the echo of the weapon bouncing off of the room. Sidious's stare met Anakin's confusion. He had to twist this for a way to get Anakin to join him. He told Anakin that the Jedi were trying to take over. It was a plot they'd been conceiving. Skywalker didn't budge. He looked at Saesee, then back to Agan. He was searching for Windu. Anakin's gaze felt called to the left, and he looked and found the Jedi Master laid out on the ground. When Anakin moved his eyes back, he saw Fisto's tentacle on the ground. He gripped his lightsaber a little tighter, trying to figure out what he should do with all this information. He could do a number of things, but what should he go with? His eyes met Master Fisto, who had his weapon in front of him. He couldn't do much. Fisto's eyes hadn't left Palpatine, waiting for the next move by the Sith Lord. Agan spoke up, telling Anakin that there was no need to escalate the situation. They had the Sith Lord. What Anakin said earlier, it was right, and the Council would back him. Anakin looked over to Agan with a jolt of hope, his thoughts still revolving around Padme at the moment, and with the will of the Council behind him, then surely he could learn what he needed to learn. Palpatine called back out across the room, telling him to remember the conversation about all who have power are afraid to lose it. Saesee could see the turning in Anakin's mind. He knew it wasn't his place, but there was no reason to lose an ally, especially one who had just beat one of the most talented duelists seen in decades. To kill Dooku wasn't something to just forget about. Each of these masters knew that, all of them having lost spars to Dooku in the past. Saesee immediately tried to negotiate Anakin's attention, suggesting that whatever the Sith Lord wanted to offer, he would never be able to give it. He told Anakin to look around the room. Palpatine wants power. To have power is to control, reminding Anakin of his earliest teachings. The dark side seeks to corrupt. The Jedi won't force Anakin's hand, but they would stand with him, as long as he stands with them. Saesee reminded Anakin how close he was to being able to access the archives. The moment the word archives left Saesee's mouth, he was electrocuted, sent tumbling across the room into the wall. Steam piled off of his body, and he looked over at the Jedi. Agan stood up and moved around the furniture, nodding his head at Anakin, and then turning to face Palpatine, while moving into his signature pose. To Anakin, this was Agan showing him that he was trusted. Agan wouldn't put his back to Skywalker if he believed the Chosen One would try and kill him. Fisto and Agan both accepted that. They said all they could. If Anakin didn't choose them, then it would be his life to suffer. Sidious hissed. He could sense the conflict within Skywalker resolving. Silence filled the room aside from the vibrato of their blades. Skywalker stepped forward, raising his blade. Sidious scowled, howling across the room again, this time at Agan. He was prepared for it, but the blast of the strike threw him from his feet. Sidious threw his blade forward, missing. not because of inaccuracy, but because of Skywalker. His blade clipped Palpatine's blade, and the move that followed had Anakin's elbow blasting Palpatine in the jaw. He stumbled back, lifting his blade in time to block a strike from Fisto. Anakin moved in front of Anakin, giving him time to rise to his feet. Palpatine spun over Fisto, getting on top of a desk and lifting a lightsaber from a vase in the corner of the room and igniting it. His smile rang out, a terrifying glow from his piercing yellow eyes. Saci, Anakin, Skywalker, and Fisto move with each other, their blades ready for the strike. Palpatine leapt down, smashing against Fisto, and then moving quickly into a fight with Skywalker. Their blades screamed just in time for Anakin to catch up. Saci was jumping over furniture and slamming his blades against Palpatine's. The duelist carried on. Anakin was shocked, catching his own breath, incredibly impressed at the skill of each of these Jedi. He couldn't believe he doubted them for so long. Anakin couldn't believe how strong Sidious was either. His strikes threw Anakin off, but he kept pace. The duel moved across the room, ruining the furniture and the walls across the office. Palpatine was pissed that he wasn't getting anywhere. He knew he should have gone for Anakin and Saci to start the fight. Surely he would have been able to kill the two of them before he had to fight Windu and Fisto, but he just had to target Windu and trip over him. It was clear that Windu was using his afterlife to torment Sidious even more. Anakin grew angrier, wanting to get the knowledge he needed to save his wife. His patience, he already had none to begin with, turned into rage. Anakin beat down on Palpatine like he was using a barbaric weapon. Sidious' blade slipped from his hand. The other Jedi tried to beat Palpatine, but they were all taken aback as Anakin took the brunt of the assault and the duel itself upon himself. His brows were creased, and with each strike Palpatine grew weaker. This was what he wanted, but not in the way he wanted it. Palpatine wanted to see Anakin do this to the Jedi, and his last sights were the red scar dripping down Anakin's face and the anger in the eye that sat between it. Anakin's blade struck true, extinguishing the life of the Sith Lord for eternity. Anakin stumbled back, taking several deep breaths. The Jedi weren't pleased with it, but they had to keep their word. Fisto and the bunch deignited their weapons and stepped forward. Fisto placing his hand on the back of Skywalker's shoulder, telling him that they would resolve everything here. He had done well. Anakin looked at Fisto with one question, asking if he could have access to the archives. Kit nodded his head, ushering Anakin towards the doorway, giving Anakin a small chip and telling him to present it to Jocasta Nu so that she could show him how to get in. Anakin stopped and looked back before Fisto turned around. He asked Kit if they were going to make him a master, if he stayed inside the chambers. Fisto turned his head towards where Mace's body lay, and looked back at Anakin. He told him that Windu himself was going to do it, as long as Sidious was a Sith Lord and they emerged victorious. Anakin nodded his head, and the moment he stepped out of the room, the door shut behind him. Anakin made his way back to the temple, completely forgetting about what he had just done. Everything felt like a blur to him. He didn't really understand what just happened. He was locked into one thing and one thing only. It was what Saci said to him. It was a good thing the three of them were still alive, because if they weren't, then surely it would have been a very difficult thing for them to convince Anakin to side with them. Anakin on his way back to the temple thought about Windu and his initiative to make Anakin a Jedi Master. It was a weird thought for sure, but now he felt terrible for not having joined them originally and allowing Windu to have died. Skywalker arrived at the temple and put everything out of his head. He got to the archives and gave Jocasta Nu the chip and entered the restricted section with her help. She told him to take his time and if he needed anything, to call out to her. Skywalker was in the restricted section for hours. The doors behind him opened, and he didn't think anything of it until a lightsaber ignited. Anakin whipped his head around and ducked under a swing. Anakin grabbed his own blade and ignited it. He was very confused. What was happening? The restricted section was dimly lit, so when he faced the blade, his eyes were slow to readjust from the darkness to the light. The voice had a proper accent to it, and he told Skywalker that he had interfered for the last time. Anakin couldn't understand what was happening, relying on the Force to defend himself. From the door, he could hear more Jedi yelling out orders, one of them using the phrase, "Cease hostility." Anakin registered what was happening. He looked forward and saw a yellow blade. It was a temple guard, but why would a temple guard try and attack him? The man told Skywalker that the future of the Sith would have been so much more pure than the desolation he left the galaxy to suffer in because of his decisions. Anakin was still confused, seeing the glare of a Pa'un man. Anakin ducked again, still readjusting his eyes. The blade crashed into the holodiscs, and the pure energy held within them let out a massive blast and sent Anakin and the Pa'un temple guard flying. Anakin's head slammed into one of the pillars of information, and he was knocked out instantly. The man who was vying for the position of Grand Inquisitor was thrown into an unstable position, having hit his massive head too, but not being knocked out. He got up and continued his fight until he was slain by a woman wielding a blue lightsaber. Anakin wouldn't wake up for a couple days, having suffered severe head trauma. A lot would unfold while he was knocked out. The Grand Inquisitor had killed Jaqar Sanu and a couple of younglings as he was trying to get to Skywalker. His hopes were to kill the Chosen One and lead the Sith, but that obviously did not happen. A transmission was intercepted from the Separatist leaders to Coruscant from Mustafar, which gave the Jedi all the information they needed to incriminate Palpatine for siding with the Separatists. While they definitely broke the rules by engaging with Palpatine, it didn't matter because the transmission, which coincidentally came in the middle of the night on Coruscant, was able to assist the Jedi with what they were trying to cover up. The timing of the events went as such. The Jedi killed Palpatine, the Chancellor's office was locked down, and shortly after that, the Republic Executive Building was closed off, quietly. Anakin was attacked 3 hours after that, and at around 4 AM Coruscant Standard Time, the Separatists' intercepted communication from Mustafar was gathered. This had Fista requesting Kenobi and an elite unit of the 7th Airborne to go to Mustafar and arrest the Separatists. After that, Ahsoka and Maul arrived at the Jedi Temple after the successful siege at Mandalore. The communication changed the entirety of the future. Anakin was taken to the Jedi Temple Hospital, and due to the stress of the events revolving around Anakin's disappearance and the security at the Republic Executive Building, Padme went to labor and gave a healthy birth to 2 twins. Of course, she wouldn't feel much better until she got a communication from a disoriented Anakin. After he woke up, obviously. She was sleeping when it came in, but the sound of his voice at least told her that he was alright. He was at this point unaware of the pregnancy as much as the rest of the Senate and the Jedi were. She was simply absent and Jar Jar Binks stood in for her. Jar Jar would join the rest of the Senate in voting in agreement with Senator Chuchi as she suggested a dismantling of the role of the Chancellor. Of course, this was followed by the acceptance of the Separatist Peace Treaty, which had been quietly sitting on Palpatine's desk for months. It was clear who the real villain was, and it was Palpatine. Chuchi and her colleagues, including Mon Mothma and Bail Organa, would agree to use the delegation of 2,000 to rip up the established system that Palpatine constructed in 3 years of corrupt power. His emergency powers tore apart the Republic, and it had to be rebuilt. As Padme healed, she returned to the Senate to continue her job. Anakin wouldn't be permitted to leave the temple for a week after his injury. In that time, he was able to talk to Padme in secrecy, which she would reveal the children and they would name them together as Luke and Leia. Anakin, when he fully recovered before being permitted to go anywhere, would be requested to the council chambers. When he entered, he was confused. The entire council was present and standing. Grandmaster Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi stood too. Anakin looked around and then down at Yoda, who waved him over. As Anakin reached the middle of the room, Obi-Wan walked up and stood behind him, putting his hand on Anakin's shoulder and smiling at him with great joy and pride. Yoda looked up with a glimmer in his eyes. Anakin hadn't seen that since he was just a boy. Ever since the war started, it seemed like there was always a great sadness in Yoda's eyes, and finally hope returned to it. Yoda told Anakin that if he would like to accept the responsibility of being a Jedi Master, he may kneel. Anakin looked down and then back to Obi-Wan. He smiled, and before he kneeled, he told the council that he appreciated the offer, but he would decline. Obi-Wan had a jolt of shock in his heart. Anakin turned down towards Master Yoda and told the Jedi Master that he wouldn't be welcome into this order. He told them that despite assisting in the fall of the Sith by killing Dooku and Sidious, the capture of the Grand Inquisitor, his apprentice capturing Maul, and Obi-Wan killing Grievous, he didn't belong here. Anakin didn't have animosity for the Order at this current moment. There were times with bad blood, but he by no means at this moment had resentment. Everything was complete. He then turned and told them that he had a wife and 2 children, and despite his great lie, he would like to be with his family, thanking them again for everything. All the bad, ugly, good, and remarkable times with the Jedi. Anakin turned towards Obi-Wan and he whispered in his ear. The rest of the council couldn't hear it, but Obi-Wan nodded his head. Before Anakin left the room, Plo spoke up. This was odd. Master Plo Koon didn't typically speak in council sessions. He gestured Anakin over to him. As Anakin walked up to Plo, Plo stepped up towards him, putting one arm around his back and telling Skywalker that this is what he deserved. Enjoy the life and be proud. Plo was proud of him. Anakin put his arm around Plo's back and said thank you. He told the Jedi Master that he appreciated everything, even when sometimes it didn't seem like he did. The 2 of them broke off, and Anakin started for the door with a tear sitting in his eye. Obi-Wan told the council that he would be back. On the way out of the temple, they ran into Ahsoka, who was looking forward to seeing Anakin. She was given a temporary room until Anakin woke up, so she had a place to stay and didn't have to worry about it. She hadn't yet seen Anakin, and she was very, and I mean very, taken aback when she learned that Skywalker left the Jedi Order, though Anakin did the same thing with her as he did to Obi-Wan, telling her to come along. Anakin, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan arrived at Padme's residence. She was there, but when she saw Obi-Wan, she was a little bit worried. Not that Obi-Wan would be upset, but that Obi-Wan would get Anakin in trouble. But Anakin quelled those concerns immediately. Of course, Anakin was almost giddy to see his children in person, and meeting them for the first time would be the greatest joy of his life. But to have his best friends with him just made it all the much better, because he didn't feel like he had to hide these feelings that he had any longer. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan would get their proper introductions to Luke and Leia, and it was all perfect. Padme had talked about their desire to move to Naboo after the children were born, and with Skywalker no longer a Jedi, it seemed so much more feasible. However, Padme's loyalties and dedication to the Republic outweighed that of what she had originally planned. Padme's strong belief that the Republic needed fixation took up her mind. She may have been able to move to Naboo and be with her family, but her mind wouldn't have been able to. She would have been too focused on the state of the Republic, especially with Naboo's voice being so important rather than being a good fit at her family's estate. Padme would have rejoined the Senate shortly after giving birth to assist her colleagues with handling the restructuring of the government. With Palpatine stripping almost all the power away from the Republic and fueling the role of the Chancellor with all of its power, they had to fix what was broken and corrupt. With Padme working so hard in the Senate, Anakin would have the joy of staying home with his children, all four of them: Luke, Leia, C-3PO, and R2-D2. It was a good life, and oftentimes when the children were sleeping, he would think about what would have been. Anakin's time with his children would be treasured, and Padme would be happy that Anakin could have it, though she would find herself tired from the amount of hard work and stress that the Senate put onto her and her allies. This wouldn't stop Anakin, though, from being supportive for her. During the war, they shared semblance of a toxic relationship, and now they were able to fundamentally restructure what may have been misplaced, having spent so much time away from each other throughout the war. Anakin and Padme learned how to effectively communicate through this period of time. While they may have not been able to see each other as much as they would have liked, it was a foundation for what their relationship should have been the entire time. A relationship in distance with poor communication was self-destructive, but a relationship in distance with communication and understanding was something to build upon, and they found it. Anakin naturally fell into the role of being a dad, which he very much so enjoyed every moment of. The restoration of the Republic to a structurally sound place would take months. Of course, a complete fix the Republic would take years, even decades, but it was stable for the moment. It allowed the senators to go back to normal hours and reduce the amount of time they spent restructuring literally everything in the Republic. Anakin and Padme were able to grow their relationship and their family over the years, adding 2 more children, another girl, and lastly a boy, though which were intended was completely unknown. Padme always thought Naboo would have been the best place to raise the children, but Coruscant seemed to be that place. Ahsoka was given residence below Padme's, paid for by the Republic and the new Mandalorian ruler, Bo-Katan, as thanks for Ahsoka's hard work in defeating Maul. On top of that, Anakin, especially during Padme's periods of long-term work inside the Senate, would bring guests to visit his family. These guests were typically one of 3 different Jedi. First was obviously Uncle One Kenobi. After him, it was a toss-up of Jedi Master Plo Koon and Grandmaster Yoda. It was always a good life, but Anakin learned that it was actually always the best life. It was just a matter of how he looked at it. With the war over and the most crucial pieces of evil being defeated or locked away, the galaxy restored the flame of hope and the chance of peace after the Clone Wars. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our story. Again, special thanks to Galva Gaming, Tristan, Darth Revan, Pimp Daddy Bane, The Last Jedi, Apollo, Jedi Sloth, Mad Maddie Studios, Anakin 003, Lemon Knight, Rex the Wolf, The Man with 3 First Names, Dark Saint 46, Jack Miller, Flynn Vassis, and Lord Denwing for supporting the channel. Check out the Patreon if you want to support me in other ways. Otherwise, let's talk about our story. This was pretty fun. I don't really have much else to say about it. I wanted to give the other Jedi Masters a spotlight. I feel like it was too predictable to just have Palpatine kill Windu after killing the others, so I felt like, what if he just targeted Windu instead? And that's where I wanted to go from. I wanted to give, because they're all Jedi Masters, let's be real here. They were all Jedi Masters, they were all taken aback by Palpatine, you know, going off and like attacking them out of the blue. And in the novelization for Revenge of the Sith, Fisto survives for like an extra couple minutes and is only killed when he's feeling Anakin's presence. And I kept that same moment in the story, except he wasn't killed because he wasn't engaging Palpatine at the moment. And so essentially I just flipped the roles. Instead of Windu being the only survivor, he was the only death. And I thought it would be more interesting to give the other Jedi more characterization and allow the Jedi to have a moment with Anakin, because they're all Jedi Masters. I mean, like, Sidious is great. He's very talented. He's one of the best, right? But I also want to give these other Jedi a chance to shine, because no one ever gives them that chance. And so I hope you all at least enjoyed that aspect of it. But aside from that, you know, don't really have much else to say about the story. I hope you all enjoyed. I love you all. Spread the love. And always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.